Now before you raving lunatics go ripping off my head for dissecting your precious little pairing, let me explain. In most cases, shipping pairs are all fine and dandy because they are completely hypothetical or without probable cause. They are what people would like to see and not necessarily what they actually see. So when you see two characters interacting in a way that is clearly defined as romantic, to me, that isn't really shipping. That is two characters having the hots for one another and potentially becoming something later on down the line. So we're going to look into all of Blake and Yang's interactions and form an opinion based off of that, But for the sake of time, I am going to be skipping through some things, so don't expect a frame by sentence breakdown of these two characters because honestly, as I'm beginning to notice, they actually don't have too much screen time together. So let me preface this by saying there is nothing wrong with same-sex couples. Everyone is entitled to love whoever they want, just so long as there is some actual sort of relationship being established. Otherwise, they might as well be using the RWBY equivalent of Tinder or Grindr. I don't really discriminate. But my point is, you guys should know that I don't care. It is not my... I don't care. So Blake and Yang meet during Volume 1, during a sequence where Yang is attempting to get RWBY more friends so she can branch out her company. Now let's just say they don't really kick it off in a meaningful way, nor in a way that even remotely implies interest in one another. Yang remarks that Blake is a lost cause while Blake continues to shun the both of them in favor of her solitude. These actually establish the characters' personalities very well. Yang is headstrong, confrontational, and clearly not good at reading between the lines, whereas Blake is reclusive, prefers to stay out of the spotlight, and is still wholly hesitant about people. Hey, just like a cat. So far, not so good. They interact the same way you'd expect two people with differing personalities to, which sometimes does create a very interesting baseline for future romance, but right now it's not so much, not gonna lie. The next time they meet, it isn't that much better. They encounter one another during the Emerald Forest and basically flex their fighting ability, to which they both confirm, yes, they are both hot shit, that's not really too big of a deal, okay? There is zero indication of romantic interest in this sequence. Yes, Yang looks at Blake, and yes, Blake smiles at Yang's childish remarks. I don't know how to explain this to you guys, but that isn't what I'm talking about when I say an indicator of interest. That's just people being people. I don't know. Have you ever talked to people before? Now, so Yang might have initially pegged Blake as this cold, distant figure who's kind of a bitch, but Blake has proven herself a capable warrior and, not too unreasonable. Blake initially viewed Yang as headstrong and dumb, but her crude humor gets the best of her for the moment. It's kind of nice. To me, this is a friendship developing. We want evidence for romance. We want some smoochy, poochie, poochie. What the fuck does that even mean? Let's fast forward until we find something even remotely similar to an emotional moment or some form of connection. It's pretty funny. I was actually browsing to see if I could find a video even remotely similar to this one. But every video wasn't questioning the authenticity of the ship and was instead just pulling every single scene and claiming it proved Bumblebee was, canon. I saw one that was like, Yang compliments Blake's bow, they are in love, and it's like, bruh. That scene was clearly her awkwardly trying to bridge a conversation for RWBY to make friends. She probably don't even like the bow. I mean, honestly, have you ever talked to people before? That's oh, here we go. This scene is the basis for a lot of people's assumption that Bumblebee is pretty much canon. In this scene, Blake is clearly overwhelmed from her anxieties about Roman Torchwick and the White Fang, and in her determination to shoulder everything alone, she is suffering from some side effects. Yang, being the friend that she is attempting to let Blake know that it is okay to leave the heavy lifting to others sometimes, or to step back and enjoy your life. Take it slow, To explain this, she mentions Summer Rose's disappearance and her own determination to find her real mom. Bringing RWBY along, she manages to endanger both of them. Blake believes that she is the only one capable of stopping what is to come. Yang is insistent that she isn't telling Blake to stop her pursuit of justice, but to slow it down. She claims that Blake is exhausted to the point where she wouldn't be capable of doing anything, which is true. Now, unless you think shoving someone once or twice is a serious romantic implication, this scene is really just a concerned friend trying to speak to a person in their life that they feel is being self-destructive, which is, it's normal. Wait. Let me guess. The wink, huh? The fucking wink is why you think that. The wink and the saving a dance. Anyone that has ever known girl friends knows that there is a common thing for girls to dance together. Or, well, just be weirdly suggestive with each other sometimes. It's kind of like how dudes are sometimes a little kind of gay to each other, but they're not really gay. It's just like, I don't know how to explain it without sounding like an asshole. Just trust me, it's not an implication of what you think. Again, it's an emotional moment of understanding between friends. Let's see what else we have. Next we have Yang and Blake share their first dance, and it doesn't show any significance at all either, so that's out. Yang witnesses Blake at the party with Sun, having fun and laughing. Yang doesn't look upset or jealous at all, and in fact is just happy that her friend has decided to come. Which again, this is a normal interaction, guys. And honestly, if you really cared about someone or were romantically interested in them, and you saw them dancing with someone else that was interested in them, you'd probably be upset or jealous or show some sign of it. She doesn't show any, so clearly not implied. Alright, let's find a real emotional moment again. I'm sick and tired of going all this. Now, I would stop and talk about this scene, but this was where all of our protagonists are acknowledging that RWBY is the purest among them, and they all tend to lie when put on the spot. Weiss explains her distaste for her own legacy, Blake explains her past with Adam and claims herself to be a coward, and Yang remarks that she just goes with the flow and is nothing like RWBY. In all seriousness, this was really well written, and it's really making me miss the original volumes. But not a shred of single romantic feelings here, lads, so we're going to keep going down the list again. Unfortunately, for the rest of this volume, we get nothing, which, again, I'm just really surprised by how much lack of screen time they have. I do remember a pivotal moment in Volume 3, so let's try and find that. I swear I'm going through all of this. Now, we have to acknowledge this scene kind of implies Blake's interest in Sun, so just keep that in mind. I mean, there was this scene from Volume 1 that did the exact same thing. It doesn't really seem like she kind of goes the way that you think she goes. Pause. Can we acknowledge how badly this was animated? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know animating anything is pretty damn hard, but this is just lazy. They just kind of boop, and then they just like slide in. They're just immediate. It doesn't look human at all. It looks stupid. Okay. Oh, right here. After Yang is presumed to be the offender of an unwarranted attack against Mercury, only Blake has doubts about Yang's intention. Everyone is pretty shocked, but we learn the reasoning for this is because the last person Blake trusted, Adam, turned out to be murderous. Little instances were accidents, self-defense, and eventually turned into full-fledged evil. Blake feels this pattern is being redone again and is hesitant. She wants Yang to promise her that she is telling the truth before she trusts her. That's not insane. That's not an insane romantic debacle, okay? Blake has trust issues because of Adam, who she cared deeply for, and now her friend Yang seems to be doing the same thing on the surface. Honestly, this volume kind of pushes Weiss and Blake more than Blake and Yang, I'm just saying. So the big bad wolf scene is here. Yang arrives to see Blake defeated at Adam's mercy, demands he leave her alone, and when he doesn't and harms her, she flares up and attacks. Not too different from Yang's reaction to Weiss getting defeated in the tournament, only this wasn't really a friendly fight. Adam disarms Yang, and Blake scrambles to protect her, fleeing away. Later on, we see Blake apologizing to Yang for what she has done. Obviously, the cause of her losing an arm was indirectly Blake. Blake flees after recovering, implying that she doesn't want to cause harm to her friends inadvertently, and she now feels responsible for everything that's happened. Yang has given up and lost all motivation to do anything along with her arm. For the next few seasons, there is zero indication of them ever having even remotely what can be considered a moment together. They're in completely different parts of the world. One is doing nothing, the other one's kind of starting a revolution. In Volume 5, Chapter 8, Yang actually appears pissed off that Blake went and ran away, saying she made her choice. When they ask Yang, "Don't you want her here?" Yang says, "Why would I want her here?" Now, it is heavily implied that Yang is just being bitter and emotional, and that's kind of her theme, is that she needs to overcome her emotional whatevers. So, whatever. I'm not seeing any romance, guys, is kind of my point. After the plot happens, Blake is reunited with Team RWBY. Blake and Yang share an awkward moment here where Blake clearly feels guilt, and Yang, having finally managed to cap her temper, understands, at least after everything, they are all back together. They smile, and that's pretty much it. They hug each other, but they all hug each other. It's not just those two. There's a part where Blake awkwardly tries to help Yang, viewing her as disabled, but that isn't romance. That's just like a legit thing that, you know, if you ever know anybody that's like lost a limb or something, it's something you will accidentally do. You know, you'll view them as incapable and try and help them, even though they probably don't want your help. Let's just get to this part, because this is the part that everybody always says. Adam versus Yang and Blake. This is the moment where Rooster Teeth officially sealed their fate with this series being terrible, but also where the cries of 1,000 Bumblebee supporters echoed. During it, Blake and Yang rely heavily on each other, hold hands, lament that they are alone, and take on the threat of Adam together. Yang comforts the sobbing Blake, and we see them pretty supportive of one another, and that is it. I'd comment on how utterly unromantic it is if I wasn't more concerned for the fact that these two young ladies appear to have no concerns over killing someone. Guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Bumblebee does not look plausible. Not to say that the ship is terrible, though. In all reality, if done properly, it can be something that flows really nicely with the story. I'll admit that, you know, it would be nice to see these two characters doing it. But there's no evidence of it. They don't interact like that. However, seeing as this series' focal point at the moment is a typical hero's journey, I don't really see much grounds for Blake and Yang to develop this kind of relationship, especially not with the time that they're in. And especially after it's been repeatedly established that she has an interest in Sun. I can say that this writing seems a little sloppy though, especially here. These two characters have been friends, yes, but they've never really come off as exceptionally close. Certainly not this close, not even to me. In the first few volumes, they come off as supportive, caring friends, with it being clearly established that Blake was interested in Sun, and Yang was just looking out for her friend, not too unlike how RWBY and Weiss clashed at first, but have come to terms. Friendship, I'm pretty sure, was the motivator here. Now, I don't believe either of these characters need love interests in order to function, nor do I think them being each other's love interests will enhance the story at all. Truthfully, I see this as Rooster Teeth's politics literally bleeding into the story, because wasn't Ilya like in love with Blake, and it was just like kind of implied that Blake just kind of like looked over it or whatever? How many characters are going to be gay? How many? It seems like every character is now gay. J.K. Rowling. We're all gay this whole time. It was all us. We're gay. Yang or Blake would need to show some interest or give us a hint that they see each other as more than friends. Blake stared at Sun with a dropped jaw and blushed at him. I mean, after Volume 3, the writers just decided to scrub their whole dynamic, but the point remains that they were, in some way, implied as being a thing. Nora and Ren were really done well, in my opinion. Honestly, subtle at first, obvious hint of Nora's interest, like within the first couple things that she says, later on developed into, well, you know, flower power. So hey, Bumblebee people, if that's what you like, I'm all for it. Continue to make your fan fiction and your weird hentai. I'm cool with it, you know. It's all cool. But at least give it some foundation. It needs a foundation. You can't just have it be established right off the bat. Just say, hey, they're in love now. It doesn't work like that. So work your hardest, write your best. That's it for this video, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe for OG 10K status. I'm gonna get 10K, I promise.